Okay, let's try this. Talking to all those people that aren't watching me. It's okay. These things I want to discuss to get them, to sort them out in my own mind. And it's amazing how easily people are lied to by the government and media. So I'm trying to remember, my, take on Syria, like my thoughts over time. And once I heard from the media outlets, I guess it was 4 years ago-ish. Again, I don't know enough. I don't want anybody to quote me that I'm getting things wrong, but 4 years ago-ish, the media wanted to blame Assad for using chemical weapons against the Syrians. And apparently that was disproven or never proved, that it was actually the rebels. And I remember hearing the story and thinking, that's very weird. It just didn't make sense to me. Why would he do, like, because Syria was stable. It was a stable country. Iraq falls because of US meddling. And they border Syria, so I guess there's an overflow from that destabilization into Syria. And I'm picturing it like Assad as a secular leader, it seems. And the quote unquote, I didn't know who these rebels were. So it's like I'm finding out these things for the first time. This whole like civil war happening in Syria, I didn't know, because I wasn't, I didn't know. This is ISIS. This is like the rebels. This is Al-Qaeda. This is ISIS. These are like extreme Islamic fundamentalists who are trying to do what they're doing all over and take down a secular leader and destroy the whole country. It's like, and so all these migrants, these sort of quote unquote oppressed people being supposedly oppressed, but these are actually ISIS people. It's even worse than I realized. These migrants that Assad is bombing, these are like the worst of the worst, and we're letting them into our countries. And it's clicking now. It makes sense. Like like everybody's like, well, why aren't these migrants grateful? Why are they causing shit wherever they go? It's because they're the extremists. They're not these helpless victims because they're a minority. This minority are extremists. And now they're refugees, so refugee equals extremist. Like this is even like more like, do not let these people into our countries. This is unbelievable. I bought the story that Assad was somehow, he's this cruel dictator oppressing his people. And it seems to be the opposite. It's like a bomb going off in your head when you've been told something and it's an absolute lie. And so Trump just bombed Assad, and you can set aside whether or not it was just mere fireworks show. Nobody was killed, that it was just for show. The fact is, it's a symbolic thing. And all the neocons, the Hillary, all these CIA people, they love it. So this means the US really has been on the wrong side of the US government. CIA, the globalists, these people who they've been on the wrong side. They have been supporting the wrong people. And I never knew, because it was sort of like 50-50. I thought the story that I got, that I think most people get, is that when the US goes into the Middle East, they don't know who the good guys are. They have to pick one, and they're both equally bad. And they just pick a side and then arm them. Doesn't matter their ideology, but they're all equally bad. And this is simply not true. And so now, who's happy about Assad being bombed? ISIS. ISIS is happy. Al Qaeda is happy. They're happy that Trump has ordered this strike. You know, a lot of people talk about fake news, false flags. And you can generally, if you put in a little bit of effort, just a little bit, I think, even though stories can be fabricated, you can generally get the sense of whether or not a story is real. Like the terror attack in Stockholm that just happened with the truck, that's real. The London attack, that's real. This sarin gas, now it's not sarin gas, it's something else gas, a different type of gas, whatever. I think this looks like a false flag, and it looks like 4 years ago they tried the same trick, and they're trying it again. I think it's much more likely, if there was chemical gas, which I don't even know if they can prove that, but if there was, it was that, you know, Assad dropped, this is what Russia's saying, Assad dropped the bombs on the rebels. I don't want to call these guys, they're not rebels. These are ISIS fighters. Let's call them Muslim, like Islam extremists. That's amazing. This is who Justin Trudeau is bringing into our country. ISIS extremists. It would be like, imagine ISIS started blowing up things in Canada, which will probably start happening. And then the government tries to shut them down. And then the media covers it. Oh, the government's horrible. They're oppressing their people, and there's a civil war, and the rebels, those are the poor victims. Right? These ISIS fighters, these people that want to set up Sharia law, they're the victims. The people committing jihad, they're the victims. It really is Up is down, black is white, left is right. The spin is unbelievable. So they set up a story. Doesn't have to be real. I didn't understand why Russia wanted to enter Syria. That didn't like I just don't why is Russia interested in Syria? Why is US interested in Syria? I didn't know which side was the good guys. I didn't know. I didn't know which side was the morally superior side. And it looks like Russia's picking the right side. They're backing Russia's backing the secular government of Syria. The US is picking the wrong side. The US is building up some really bad karma here. It does appear that the US has been supporting ISIS. And when I heard people say this, I've seen people say it, and I thought they were conspiracy nuts. Because it just seems so preposterous. So Assad is fighting ISIS and Al-Qaeda, and Trump is attacking Assad? What the fuck? So there's an immediate backlash of all Trump supporters. Like now they're like, you've just betrayed our vote and you've just lost our support. And when I first saw the story, I didn't understand why Trump supporters were so mad at him, because I didn't know the reality of Syria. I didn't know who the players were. It was just this sort of unknown quantity. So I was watching Ron Paul. Again, I haven't watched enough of Ron Paul, but now I'm like, okay, I got to start watching Ron Paul. See if what he's saying makes sense. I've heard people talk about Ron Paul a lot, and again, people they say all things about Ron Paul, and maybe I believe them, but I haven't really watched him to judge for myself. It's amazing the power, how people so easily, you can be manipulated so easily. So now I'm thinking I need to watch Ron Paul to figure out how trustworthy Ron Paul is for me. The one clip I saw, he seems very knowledgeable and reasonable, making sense. I think it's hard for the average person to conceive that the government is intentionally presenting a story which is the absolute opposite, the absolute opposite of what's really happening. I think most people find that hard to believe that they could and would do that. Amazing. So all the people that hate Trump, they're all happy about this. So I mean, not that tells you anything, but a lot of times you want to look at when something happens, who's happy when it happens, and you've got Hillary's happy, all the globalists, all these CIA, the war machine, they're all happy. But I mean, this Tomahawk strike, it's helped me because it's forced me to actually dig in a little deep to actually what's actually going on in Syria. So on the one hand, it's even worse than I realized, because now it's like these quote unquote refugees, migrants, they are predominantly ISIS. These are like the extremists that Canada's being forced to welcome with open arms. We're going to welcome extremists, and it's like you see how ungrateful they are. They feel entitled to a whole, and then so that, because, and you wonder, like, well, are they a conquering? Is this like a conquering group of Muslims? And it's like, yes, this is like ISIS. They want to conquer the world for Islam, and we're inviting them in. It's like, come rape us, please, please, please rape us. We feel so guilty. Maybe if you rape and kill us, then we can feel good about ourselves. It's like absolution by suicide. Right? We're gonna absolve all our sins through suicide by extremists. This is why everyone as individuals needs to address their own feelings of guilt and address it and do what you, not to obviate it, not to obviate the guilt, but to process it, do what you personally need to do. If you feel you need to do penance, if you feel you need to say, you know, acknowledge and reparations, whatever idea. Jordan Peterson talks about his way of dealing with this generational guilt is to take what you have been given in your life and make the best of your life. That's how you deal with guilt. That's his take on dealing with guilt and generational guilt, which is cool. I'm not sure if it's sufficient. It might be the only practical, moral way to deal with generational guilt. I don't know. I don't think reparations necessarily is moral. It could be. I'm not sure. I still have to work through this for me. But the point is if you have a whole groups, whole generations, everybody I went to high school with, if all these people are not dealing with their generational unconscious guilt, because it's unconscious. A lot of this is like there's unconscious for their foreparents, great grandparents feeling guilty for that, whether it be true or not. It could be false guilt, but it's sort of looming. That this needs to be addressed, or else what we see happening will happen, where you invite the worst of the worst to come and rape and pillage and conquer you, to sort of expunge your guilt for, you know, your complicity in what your, you know, great grandparents did. Or even feeling guilty for what your government did or not doing it. So there's you've got the macro and the micro. And if you have a bunch of micro, that would be individuals who have not processed generational guilt, then the macro is going to be suicidal. That's what we're seeing. We're seeing suicidal behavior. We're seeing lack of will to live as as um, as a culture and as a group. Instead of, some people commit suicide by cop. Um, this migrant thing is suicide by migrants. Like, let's just destroy our countries. Let's destroy our culture and destroy everything to deal with our generational guilt. So in summation on this one point is to avoid suicide by immigration, people all individually have to grapple with and process. We need to process any lingering aspects of generational guilt so that we don't collectively commit suicide. I don't think this point is being made, at least not in the videos I'm seeing. People are mentioning guilt, but they're not talking about individually everybody processing. I think process is a foreign concept to a lot of people. And it's amazing how big a deal this is. I'll probably continue to talk about this for as long as I'm making videos. But I just feel like I've suddenly gained a bunch of clarity. What I don't know yet, and maybe if anybody watches this, they can let me know, is, I mean, it seems like there's a few theories of why the powers of the world want control of the Middle East. And one is oil. One is access to pipelines to get to the Mediterranean for shipping purposes of the oil, so that they can have access to oil. The other is this idea of euro dollars, oil being sold in euro dollars versus US dollars. Another reason is they just want to be able to control as many countries as possible for resources. I mean, there's a whole bunch of possible, like, they want to. You've heard, like, the George Bush war plans, that they want to destabilize areas. Just horrible. Like, they're on the wrong side. They're on the wrong side here. Why? These are, like, this is a horrible, horrible thing. You've got secular countries and you're intentionally destabilizing them. That would be like, I mean, would Americans want a foreign power to come in and destroy all their institutions, to start assassinating their leaders that were democratically elected? It's just, so I think a part of, like, I knew that the CIA had a track record of toppling democratically elected leaders, which is really, really bad karma. But I didn't know, I didn't know if it was still happening in present day. And I didn't know how much of the government was complicit. It seemed like the CIA was sort of like a rogue, like funded by the US, but not really connected to mainstream US. So I just didn't know how much of a connection there was between the army, the military, the government, and the CIA. Like I didn't know how much in bed they are with each other. But it seems like they are, which is very disturbing. And again, I don't know how much they are, but it looks like they're in bed together more than I had thought. And this all goes back to trying to figure out, well, how guilty should the average American or Canadian be, like, for this? Because like, how much of America is okay with this is the question, right? If it's a rogue agency, then your average American can say, well, that had nothing to do with me. The CIA has just gone rogue. But if it's deeper, then the average American shoulders more burden of guilt. And I know people like you've got like many Americans don't agree with these, but and I'm not saying that's true. I'm not saying that the majority of Americans agree with this, but all I'm saying is that if it's more than CIA, if there's more players involved, then that means there's more probability of being guilty for what's happening around the world, and specifically Syria and Iraq. Trump got elected saying, like, we're not gonna, well, there's tons of videos out about it already. Some people say he's been pressured into this by the military complex, by the neocons, all these people that the globalists, the Hillarys. I just don't know why. And what it seems to be is the people who are the movers and shakers, the running the government behind the leaders, sort of pushing the buttons. It seems that they don't care about being on the right side. It's more like they're seeing, like, we have an interest and we'll pick whoever we think will work best for us, and we don't care whether or not they're Islamic extremists or whether or not they're pacifist Buddhists. It doesn't matter whether or not they're indigenous or whether or not they are separatists. It doesn't matter. They're not picking based on the ideology of the group. And B, they don't seem to think there's any collateral damage, I guess. So they don't care. They don't think it matters that they're backing ISIS and that this is going to be a problem. They don't seem to see that there's going to be a fallout issue from this. So I think it's possible there's a bunch of blindness. Like the Bank of Canada, the head guy of the Bank of Canada has read the article in National Post, which is an opinion rag that you can't trust. They have an agenda. But the head banker of Canada wants to double down on immigration. So they do not see consequences for inviting extremist people into countries. I think these these economists, they call them external something. They have a word for it: external repercussions that don't show up on their balance sheets and income statements, and therefore don't matter in their worldview. So it's either like a willful blindness, or they're aware and they don't care because they've built up enough walls around where they are. So if the world goes to hell, they feel they're shielded sufficiently that it won't touch them, so they don't even care if they destroy America or Canada or Europe, because they've built up their walls. So it's either, so these people that want to destroy Assad, they either they're not aware of what they're doing, or they're aware and they don't care. Those are the only two options. And I think it's somewhere in the middle. I don't think they understand the threat of supporting Islamic extremists. I really don't think they understand the threat. And I also think they understand it enough and they still don't care. And these are the people high up in government. These are the people running the media companies. And so even more and more and more, we cannot trust the main media companies. And we cannot trust our elected leaders to represent us. I think I used to think, oh, these people, like when I see politicians, here's what I thought. I thought, you know what, these people, I assumed they were Canadians, right? But they just got corrupted. They get corrupted, and then they have to, give favors to whoever got them into power. But now it seems to be even worse than that, that they are actually against Canadians, or the people elected. They're against Americans. They actually are working for the other side. They're working for people that want to destroy everything good about Canada. Useful idiots. Useful idiots. Perhaps a few of them, they don't know that they're useful idiots. I'm not sure if Pierre Trudeau realizes that he's a useful idiot. Again, you can't get inside his head. Does he know that he's being played? Probably. No, probably not. I mean, he's very oblivious. He doesn't seem to have much awareness. There's a great arrogance to him. So I'm grateful that I'm finally figuring out who's the good guys and who's the bad guys. And the bad guys have been some significant players in the US government and Canadian government, who they're actually on the wrong side. They're supporting the extremists. They're supporting jihad people. They're supporting Sharia law. They're supporting all these restrictions of freedom. They're supporting the shutting down of free speech. They're supporting the right to not be offended. And a lot of young, this is one of the most scariest stats. This is a little bit of a divergence here. Scare is like millennials, these young people, it's like some crazy number. I mean, this is it. To me, this says we are going to get civil war. This number tells me there will be civil war. Again, roughly speaking, I'm not sure what it is. It could be 60-40 one way, but it doesn't matter. It's a significant number. I think it's something like 60%. That seems incredible, doesn't it? 60% of young people don't support free speech if it offends someone. That is a stat. Now I could get the stat wrong. Could be the other way. It could be 40%. But still, 40%, that's just way too many. Way too many. And this is going to, is sowing the seeds. In 20, 30 years, we're going to have civil war in North America if these people don't wake up. Because when you deny free speech, the consequence is civil war. That's just what happens. That's, if you can't talk about your issues, then you'll fight about them. That's logic 101. So Trump is on the wrong side, even if it is just a shit show. Symbolically, he's on the wrong side. I don't know, like people are saying he's been bribed. People, like, they're saying he looks afraid, like he's sort of being forced to do this, but it doesn't matter. He's on the wrong side. This chemical weapon thing, this smells, looks, acts, walks like a false flag. And false flag is where they make up a story that's not true to create a pretext to do what they want to do, right? That's how it works. People talk about this many cases where the government makes up a story, or if they don't make it up, they use a story. They don't prevent it from happening because they need a pretext for their agenda. And I'm not high up enough. The average Canadian isn't high up enough to understand what the agenda is, because we're not in those circles. It could be a few things. Control of an area, again, oil control, resources. So whatever the reason, what I'm pretty clear about now is we've been backing the wrong people, which I wasn't clear about. And what I'm also clear about is that these quote unquote refugees are even worse than I feared. So we're welcoming extremists. Like, I thought there was a percentage of extremists coming in that you couldn't bet for. So this is why I didn't want, so I wanted to stop immigration from these, because not because they were all, but because there was a significant portion that would be, and therefore just don't let anybody in. But now that I understand what's happening, it's like that percentage that will be extreme has just skyrocketed once I realized that these quote unquote rebels that Assad is oppressing and that need to be saved from a civil war, these rebels that are being oppressed and need help, they're ISIS. This is Al Qaeda. And we're letting them in, and no wonder they're blowing up shit in the countries they come to. No wonder. Oh my God, it's like it's like it's like, come on in. Come and rape us, come destroy us. Don't worry, you don't have to integrate. You don't have to respect any of our laws. In fact, make up your own laws. So that it's even worse than I realized. So it's good to sort of know what you're up against. Right? Right. And that's all I got to say about this for now.